Hi everyone, welcome back to Dobby Books. So today is my library sale, library haul video. And today I went to two different libraries because I had something very specific in mind, and when I couldn't quite find it at my regular library sale, I went to one that wasn't too far off, and I think I found a couple of the items I was looking for. There was some good finds, some new authors, and some duplicates, and I'm really bummed I did again. So what can I say? Normally, well, I'll get to that point when I get to that point. So I've been collecting some more children's literature and, young reader, YA, and I moved all of the children's literature that I had here in my library to the next room, to the guest room in a lower library. There's 3 good sized shelves, and there's 2 of them there. And I decided to have the kids literature there, and on the right add some collections that I've been working on or that are complete. But in the process, there's some of those books that are signed by the author. So I thought it might be a good idea if I pulled those and replaced them so that I could keep the signed copies here in my library safe and sound. So right now, Artemis Fowl. And this is one of the duplicates I did. The Time Paradox. I got this one. Let me see. I got this one today. So thrilled. I got it for $1. Wonderful. And I have my little notebook here that I keep a list of the books that I have, the books that I need. I cross them off as I get them. But for some reason, this time around, I hadn't crossed off this particular book. So I know I got this. I think I might have gotten this last week at my regular library sale. And this is Artemis Fowl, The Time Paradox. But I didn't cross it off the list. So today, when I went to the other library and I saw this, not crossed off the list, I got it again, which really is a bummer. But I'm just gonna, I paid $1. I'll bring it back to my regular library and they'll sell it for $1. So it evens out. I think I might hold on to this one, the one that doesn't have the little price tag on the end. I'll hold on to this one and I'm going to return the other one. I hate it when I do that. All right, next one. This is, I didn't find any Charlie Bone. I didn't find any Artemis Fowl today. So I decided to work on the new collection, which is another series that my youngest son, had been reading. He read all but book 1. Excuse me, he read all but the last book. I think he said he had to read book 9, but there's actually 10 books in this series, and I found books 9 and 10 hardback in very good condition. Really did. And I found these at the second library that I went to. It's the Pendragon series. And book 10 is The Soldiers of Hala. Book 9 is Raven Rise. So this is Raven Rise. This book is in very good condition. Maybe, like the dust jacket's a little, mildly beat up. A small tear, which is very fixable. The pages are not marked, not frayed, not bent. Beautiful. And this other book, same thing. The pages are in very good condition. The spine is good. I'm not going to say very good. I'm going to say good. It's not too wobbly, but it's mildly wobbly. And the pages, especially at the top, are more yellow than the ones on the bottom. And that's because they get exposed to the sun. When you have your books, people, protect them from the sun. Top more yellow than the bottom. So this isn't one of the last children's books I got. This one I've never heard of. I'm not familiar with the author, but I should be. Something tells me I should be. But this is such a beautiful book. And the story it's got me. I want to read this. I simply want to read this book. Now I have to. Like I don't have enough to read already, right? It's called The Mouse and His Child. Can you see that? The Mouse and His Child. What a pretty book. I'm so sorry about the light. I'm trying to block it here. The Mouse and His Child. And apparently the illustrator is a Newbery Medal winner. But David Small calls The Mouse and His Child one of the reasons I went into children's literature. If books like this were possible, I wanted to help make them. Many other stories and illustrations came first, however, including his own, Imogene's Antlers and Paper John, as well as pictures for stories written by his wife, Sarah Stewart. These include The Library and The Gardener, which was a Caldecott Honor Book. David won the 2001 Caldecott Medal for So You Want to Be President by Judith St. George. David and Sarah live in a village on a river in Michigan. This is published by Arthur A. Levine Books. This was a library book, and I got to give you a sense of the story. The images stay with you long after the book is done. The toy mouse and his father, on a journey together, joined hand in hand. Manny Rat, the nefarious lord of the junkyard, stalking the toy mice for their clockwork parts. Uncle Frog, spouting wisdom and nonsense from within a glove. And the bonzo dog food dog, repeating himself endlessly on a label, fading away to the last visible dog. Russell Hoban's novel is many things: a stirring adventure story, a sharp-witted comedy, and the moving tale of a father and son struggling to return to a state of grace. Called one of the great works of children's literature of the 20th century, but with an audience that spans ages and times, The Mouse and His Child has been lovingly re-illustrated by Caldecott medalist David Small for a new generation and a new millennium. First published in 1967, The Mouse and His Child was Russell Hoban's first full-length novel for readers of any age. In a career spanning 4 decades and more than 60 books, he has written such children's classics as Bedtime for Francis, The Marzipan Pig, adult fiction including Ridley Walker and Turtle Diary, and several collections of poetry and essays. He lives in London, England. Okay. Written by Russell Hoban and illustrated by David Small. The Mouse and His Child. I'm trying to get this glare out of that for you. Very pretty book. I really look forward to reading this. All right, and you know what? I did find a Selznick replacement, the one for The Invention of Hugo Cabret. So this one I found at the second library. They put the little prices there. So this one is going to replace the signed copy that I have. This is going to go in my granddaughter's library, and the signed copy I already have set apart here. Okay. Now, history picks. I found a lot of history picks. And I was looking for a series by Shelby Foote entitled The Civil War, a narrative. And I was watching an interview with Shelby Foote. And he was definitely a very, how can I say, me with my high energy level, if I sat in a room with this man and listened to him speak, it would automatically calm me down, and he would have my full attention, simply because his energy is just so very calming, and it was peaceful. It would have been nice to have met him or listened to him live, but I very much liked what he had to say in the interview. If I could find it, I'll post the link. He talked not only about the research that he had to do for this series, which took him 20 years, but he also talked about his life as a writer and what he would recommend to those who chose to be writers. I do not choose to be one, but I always like to hear what they have to say about it. And he had a lot of good and wonderful things to say. So that encouraged me even more to look for his series. If I like it, if I like his prose and whatever, I will purchase a new set of this series, all pretty and sparkly, because that's how I like it. And then I will send these copies that I have now back to the library. So it's a 3-part series. It's simply called The Civil War, a Narrative. The first one is Fort Sumter to Perryville by Shelby Foote. They are each pretty thick. And The second one, get this, I thought I had all three. So here's the other two that I got. But what I didn't realize was that these two are the same. But all I saw was a different color, because each one is a different color. These two are two different colors. And then this one's, so I see three different colors. I thought, wonderful, all three volumes are here, peachy, hunky-dory. I came home with them. But then when it came time to digitally add them to my library, I realized I had 2 copies of Volume 3. Volume 3 is entitled Red River to Appomattox. Volume 2 has Fredericksburg to Meridian. That's the one I don't have, so I have to go back and look for that. This was originally written in 1958 and then renewed in 1986. So I have almost all of Shelby Foote's Civil War series. The first, Fort Sumter to Perryville. The second one is coming. And the third one, Red River to Appomattox. It's also humongo. When I do sit down to read this, it's going to be a haul. I can't do it now because I'm working on finishing up my Copperfield project and Jane Austen July project, and that'll keep my hands full. So there's that. And let me put this duplicate with the other one. And then I found some other history titles. The Diary of a 49er, edited by Chauncey L. Canfield. And what I like about this is it's a collection of primary sources. So people who were 49ers living through this time in California history, writing to family, sharing their experiences. I love that. So this I'm going to add to my American history collection. It's not that thick, but when I looked inside, it is actually a collection of letters and other communications. So I can read portions while I'm doing the Gold Rush, the history of the Gold Rush, so that'll help. I think my brain is tired. This other one is a book that I saw, I remember back in the 90s when I was homeschooling my children. I would get all these different catalogs and what have you, and in a couple of them, I saw this particular history book. I would not use it to teach history now. But because I was familiar with the title, I'd heard something about it. I purchased it because now I want to get a chance to take a closer look at it. And I like to see, because history is presented by different historians, and each historian has their own purpose, right? So you're going to have histories that are going to emphasize different themes. This is a history geared towards children. And this is coming from a Catholic Christian perspective. So I'm going to read this in order to become familiar with it, and it's going to remain in my collection simply as this is just I'm glad I read it now. Now I know it. It's written by Anne W. Carroll. It's entitled Christ and the Americas. Can you see that? There we go. Christ and the Americas. Not crazy. It's a paperback book. It's in very good condition. I don't see, no, I'd say good, very good. Yeah. Some pages are a little bent, so let's say good condition. I'll read this when I get the chance to peruse it, but I just simply want to have varieties of perspectives on my American history, and that's why I've added this. And then the other one I found is called The Varieties of History, from Voltaire to the Present. And it's edited, selected, and introduced by Fritz Stern, and it presents the various approaches to history. So, for example, some of the table of contents titles are The New Philosophical History, and it mentions Voltaire. The Critical Method, it mentions Barthold. The Ideal of Universal History, Leopold von Ranke. National History and Liberalism, Augustine Theory. History and Literature, Thomas Babington Macaulay. And it goes on and on. History as an academic discipline. History as a science. Historicism and its problems. Economic history. Specialization and historical synthesis. History and Political Culture, and A New Economic History, Clio and Crisis. So this is the second edition of it. Again, something on history and the themes of history, the types of history, which is important to know. This is going to go onto my history shelf as a good reference. All right, and I found this book here by Chinua Achebe. I heard about this book on a podcast that was talking about classical education, especially among the African American community. And this author was mentioned. When he was being educated as a child in Africa, the pedagogy that was used in his education was a classical educational format. And this talks about his experiences as a school child learning under this. And I was very curious when I heard about this. So it was a title that stayed in the back of my mind. I really didn't think I'd find it. I think when I looked online, I wasn't having a lot of luck. But it's just one of those things you sort of tuck in the back of your head and you say, well, all right, I'll find it eventually. It wasn't a big urgent thing, but I found it. And it's such a nice edition. It's an edition that looks like it may have been read once. It has deckled edges, hardback copy, in very good condition, slight yellowing at the top. I'm delighted. And this is published by Knopf. What a great book. I'm happy. This is a happy find. And one book, this is a book I also heard about. I don't know, did I tell you guys about this last week? I don't know. But there are different, I have different histories of Christianity, and I have secular sources and Christian sources, Catholic sources, Protestant sources. I love to get the different perspectives. And this one, I believe, is a Catholic Christian perspective. It's called Dominion. The author is Tom Holland. I know that name, damn it. I know that name, and I'm trying to think, why? Why do I know that name? Where have I heard it? I don't know. But it'll hit me later. This I did not find at the library. This I purchased at my local Barnes & Noble. I went there for something else. I saw this and said, you know what, let me get it. It wasn't that expensive. So this is, again, this will be history. I'm just not sure if I'm going to put it in the Catholic book section shelf or if I'm going to place it on the general history shelf. We'll see. And last but not least, I found the names of a couple of new authors. The first one is George Sand. She was a 19th century woman who really eschewed the traditional norms of women's roles. What a very interesting story. I think someone recently wrote a biography of George Sand. I need to find that, and I don't recall the title in this article that I was reading, but I would like to read about this woman. Very good writer, did a multitude of different things. And I was keeping my eye open at the library today to see if I could find anything from her, but I couldn't. But the other one, I have heard of her. Just the name. I knew she was an African-American author, but that's all I knew. What I didn't know was her a little history about her life. And she really did have a very unique life. And she was always, I'm trying to think if I had a daughter like her, I would have described her as very much living in an imaginary world. She would just simply insist on saying things in a way that I think would just throw people off, and they think, oh boy, I don't think she's got all her marbles. And I'm telling you that frankly, just from some of the things, some of the ways that she would converse with people, some of the things she would say, it threw people off. And looking back now, perhaps she was just someone who's a creative. Someone who's a creative, they don't truly belong to this world. I mean, they simply have a place that is just another level beyond us. that I think a wise person would be good to honor, because it's that creative, magical personality that has a way of helping us gain a better perspective on our own lives and on the world that we live in, this reality that we live in. And Zora Neale Hurston was one of those people. She died. She didn't have any children. She was not married at the time of her death. She'd been living alone for a while. And because she was in a facility at the end of her life and there were no next of kin, they gathered all her belongings after her death and burned them. And just as the employee of this facility had gathered up all her things in a barrel and lit it up, there was an African-American police officer that saw the smoke, and just something told him, take a look. So he went there. He knew whose place this was, and he doused the fire, and he managed to save many of her writings and her pictures and other items of hers. Without this guy, we would have had nothing. And that man's son lives in Northern California. He's known as the singing police officer. I think he sang at one of the baseball games. And he contributed to this biography that was written of her. And so of course I kept my eyes open for a book by her, and I found one. Their Eyes Were Watching God. I'd heard of this book a lot, but I didn't have it. So I decided, let me purchase this, let me start here. And this is a picture of Zora. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a link to that article if I can bring it up. I'm pretty sure I saved it. I'll provide a link to that article so that you can get an idea of who she was, what she was like. And that was it, people. That's everything. I'm tired. It's so hot today. It was so hot yesterday. It was so hot today. And like an idiot, I went out on both days because I had to get out and run errands. And today was my library shopping day, and I wasn't going to miss that at all. So the sun has wiped me out. So I'm going to take a nap. And I want to encourage the rest of you, stay safe and stay cool and enjoy your summer. Bye-bye.